Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about 2 soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games they come from without getting too bogged down in music theory. It's time for our final episode of 2020, and that means it's time for us to count down what we think are the top 10 game soundtracks of the year. And boy, was that an arduous process to narrow down. Joe, it's been a tremendous year for video game music.
Oh yeah, I keep describing it as it's been a crazy year, because let me just put it this way, for honorable mentions alone, we had like 32 contenders.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
And then for like the top 10 contenders, we had at least 15.
Oh yeah, to the point where we had our final 10 that we had great difficulty creating. I think it was then 17 total games in contention, because then we had like 7 surefire honorable mentions. What did we end up bringing it to? 19 honorable mentions. So we like drafted 6 each to kind of flesh out our honorable mentions. And then there was still like another 17 more or something like that for honorable mentions. There's a lot of amazing game music this year.
Which I don't think we didn't do honorable mentions last year because we didn't have enough.
Oh no, and it was like we had maybe a dozen honorable mentions. Like there's something about this year that was just very special for game music, and really excited to get into sharing our combined list with you all. And it was basically, we came up with our own top 10 lists and then tried to synthesize them in the way that made the most sense to us. Granted, this may be involving some blind spots in games that we did not experience as adequately as maybe you did. We have different tastes than you do, so
we have different tastes from each other.
Oh, I mean, certainly. Yes, we do. And so this was our creation that represents the video game music podcast that we do here with Original Soundchat, and it's our list for 2020.
And it's the only correct one, and let nobody tell you differently.
Well, there you go. But we'll be glad to hear yours in the comments on social media at Soundchat OST, wherever you'd like to reach us. Let's get things started then with number 10 in the best of 2020, Doom Eternal. Oh, I can hear those clicky clacks away going, tick, 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 tick. What? This had to be at least in your top 5. I think this is just a matter of we did not experience this game as much, but you know, it had to be here in the top 10. Composed by Mick Gordon, who still did another amazing job on this Doom soundtrack. So, the critical 5 we pulled together for Doom Eternal. This is The Only Thing They Fear Is You. Up next is Meat Hook. following that is BFG 10K. Some more ambient music here, but this is Urdak. And finally, to wrap up our Critical 5 for number 10, Doom Eternal, Gladiator. Yeah, I'm really excited to eventually get to Doom Eternal and to kind of experience, these songs in game because, man, Mick Gordon does amazing work. Even though there was drama this year with the mix on, the final soundtrack and whatnot, but I mean, in game he's got that Doom machine going. He brought in choir, as you heard in some of the clips there. So I mean, it's just a tremendous soundtrack, and it really kicks in hard.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass, and that's probably how I'm going to give it a shot, though. Everything I hear about it makes it sound like it's probably not going to be my thing. But yeah, the soundtrack. I mean, Mick Gordon, he's one of the best working in the industry right now. So at least on the Western side. So like that part I know I'll at least enjoy. Maybe if I play it on easy, maybe I'll get through it. I'm not good at FPSs, guys.
There you go. And hopefully it does stay on Game Pass for a while. I mean, talk about a headline of 2020, Microsoft buying Bethesda. I mean,
yeah, I imagine that means it ain't leaving anytime soon. Let's be real. All right. Number 9 is a game that came in right at the tail end, honestly. Like, I think this is the latest releasing game on the whole list.
I think you're right, yeah.
And that is Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. The team of composers that worked on this game includes Kumi Tanioka, Reo Uratani, Ryotaro Yagi, and Haruki Yamada. And the first track we're going to highlight here is The Battle of Hyrule Field. Following that, we have the champion, Rivali. Go on from the mountains and head into the desert for the champion, Urbosa. Tone it down a tad, you get overlooking Hyrule after the Calamity. And of course, you have the new take on a classic theme in The Knight Who Seals the Darkness. I need to get back to Age of Calamity. I'm still in Chapter 2. I have not played it all since last time we talked about it. It's very, very good, but just, it's been a busy couple weeks. This is one of the biggest reasons why it's been a couple weeks.
This game is on my Christmas wish list, so as we record before Christmas here for a little inside baseball, have not played the game just yet, but if it's any indication, I mean, with the original Hyrule Warriors soundtrack that was a fantastic score. And this one with some Breath of the Wild inspiration, just as good, if not better. I mean, I think it's a good place here on this list. And yeah, you're right. I totally squeaked it out. I mean, some games like Cyberpunk, with all its drama aside, I came in too late. I think it released the day we were finalizing the list. And it's like, sorry, just didn't make the cut. So do be noting that as well, that release dates may play a factor in the list here.
Oh, very much so.
Number 8 on the best of 2020 for game soundtracks. It is The Pathless, composed by Austin Wintory. Starting this critical 5, it is An empty monastery. Up next, it's Cernos. Following that, Sauro. Number 4 on our list for the Pathless, The Path to Salvation. And wrapping things up, A Land Which Was Not My Own. It's a game I'd still like to get to this year if I can. Another Austin Wintory scores. Man, the guy does fantastic work. I mean, it's not, you know, I don't think it'll win like Journey-like awards, right? But it's another powerful Austin Wintory score.
Yeah, I didn't expect to like this game as much as I did. I expected to like it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be in like my top 5 games of the year.
Wow.
It's also a very short play. I was able to knock it out in one play session. of like 3-4 hours, somewhere around there. And it's just very good. And yeah, this score is a big part of it. Like, I feel like I might have, when making this list, I might have leaned a little too hard on the boss music, but like the bosses are just the most memorable part of that game.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, the game's very good. If you have not played The Pathless and you have interest in just a neat little action game, it's also a puzzle game. It's got a lot of puzzles. It's definitely worth giving a shot because it's short and it's very good. And it's once again Annapurna Interactive, who I guess I have signed my life over to because every game they publish I basically have enjoyed. Following that, we have a revival of an old beat-em-up series with just, it's such a... I'm surprised that I enjoyed this game as much as I did. It's Streets of Rage 4 coming in at number 7. The composer for the game is largely credited as Olivier Derivier, but it has a couple of guest composers, which we will highlight in these 5 tracks. The first one being one of them. By Yuzo Koshiro, it's Character Select. Following that, track number 2 is On Fire. We have another guest composer coming in at number 3. It's Yoko Shimomura herself with Shiva. Track number 4 is An Exhibition. And track number 5 is Lift the Ground.
It's a game I want to eventually get to. I don't know if I'll sneak it in before the end of the year, or this will be near the top of next year. But, I mean, listening to that soundtrack, though, it's amazing. When you bring in guest composers like that and they deliver standout work and the rest of the tracks are still so good, I mean, that character select theme in particular is fire.
Yeah, when I was listening to this to be like, well, I mean, it should probably at least be a honorable mention, I listened through it, and the character select was the first song that hit me where I was like, oh no, this is going in the 10. Mm-hmm. This is one. I plan on attempting it in co-op with my roommate. Again, it's another game that's on Game Pass, but I have heard that it is hard as hell. I have heard that it is unforgivingly hard, and I already don't really like beat 'em ups all that much, so I can't imagine I'm going to enjoy playing it, but I do want to at least give it a shot.
That's really interesting to know. But yeah, another win for Game Pass for sure. I mean, it's a strong service this year. And it continues with another game on Game Pass with number 6 on our top 10 best of 2020. It is Ori and the Will of the Wisps, composed by Gareth Coker. Game I thoroughly enjoyed this year. For our Critical 5 for Ori and the Will of the Wisps, we start with Dashing and Bashing. Calming things down in the hub world, this is Sanctuary in the Glades. But then things pick up. This is Escaping a Foul Presence. It's final boss time. This is Shriek and Ori. And wrapping things up for number 6, this is Ori Embracing the Light.
I still gotta get the Blind Forest, man.
I think you will enjoy it if you had an appreciation for, Metroidvanias and things like that. It's a pretty, I think, easy entry point into that genre. But Will of the Wisps just takes up to a whole nother level. I mean, Moon Studios delivered great work this year, and I feel like it was a snub on a lot of, Game of the Year awards, and it was right at the beginning of March, so I mean, a lot came out since then, but a stellar sequel that has only gotten better with patches and, with Xbox Series X and S. I mean, the loading is tremendous, pushing up to 120 frames per second. Like, it's a game that seems to have only improved more and more with patches throughout the year. The music is stellar. The gameplay is so good now that Ori has more tools at his disposal as opposed to this the Spirit Flame from Blind Forest. So I feel like it's a really calm, soothing game. Actually, it's been a game that I've even put on the TV to fall asleep to because it's just so nice and relaxing and calming. I mean, some of the battles and chases, not as much, but what a game. I think that's in my top 5 this year.
It's been a good year for Gareth Coker, too, because it's not on our list, but he also did Immortals Phoenix Rising, which came out recently as well. So he got some good work done this year.
Well, and he's also working on Halo Infinite, and
yeah,
whoop, that slipped a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Not his fault, though, at all.
All right. At number 5, it's the newest game from Sucker Punch Studios. It's Ghost of Tsushima. Composed by Elon Eshkiri and Shigeru Umebayashi. It's a game about being a samurai and a ghost, too, I think. I don't know. But we're going to jump right into it with the first track being Jin Sakai. Following that, it's The Way of the Samurai. At number 3, we have Tsushima Suite 2, Should I? Coming in at number 4, it's Tsushima Suite 4, Kodoku. And lastly, we have The Way of the Ghost.
Joe, I'm begging you. You gotta get to this game. You got to.
I know. Like I said, I bought it. It's currently sitting, no joke, 5 feet away from me on my bookshelf right behind me. So, yeah, I gotta get to it. Ben's been putting in more hours into it recently, and he really enjoys it, and I think I'd probably like it. And yeah, I gotta get to this game. This is a blind spot that I have this year.
I 100% completed this game, Platinum Trophy. Everything is not a difficult Platinum Trophy, but even still, it is an Assassin's Creed game, all in name though. And the samurai versus ghost style is so cool. The soundtrack is a big standout. One of the music moments of the year is in that Jinsekai piece. The title splash is one of the best in not only this year, but of the last several years. It's remarkable. Such a good moment when you play that game. And yeah, I mean, wow, to have like the feudal Japan sound like emulated so perfectly and captured just right. I mean, especially for some of those samurai duels, the battles. Yeah, it's just a fantastic score and a really popular game. It won the Player's Choice at the Game Awards. It seems to be that, The Last of Us Part 2 wins a lot of the critical awards, but when it comes to what fans on the internet think was the game of the year, it's Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, it kind of took it away, even though the actual correct answer is later on the list, but it's fine. Don't worry. Nobody can be right all the time.
Number 4 on the best of 2020 for original Soundchat is Persona 5 Royal, composed by Shoji Meguro. And you may be saying, isn't it cheating to have the amazing soundtrack of Persona 5 influence this 2020 list so much? Oh, dear listener, You must not understand. Persona 5 Royal is here only on its merits of the new songs on its soundtrack. It's that good. So let's start with its opening theme, Colors Flying High. Up next, it's the battle theme. This is Take Over.
Prior notice, called for you. We wanna make this party you don't wanna skip. Gonna be a show to remember. Take over, start to boogie down. Make over, nothing's gonna take away. My life was over when it started with that shoe. The thought while walking, I'm getting names over.
Something isn't right, though, in the third semester of the game. This is So Happy World. It's the build-up to the final showdown. This is I Believe.
It's time to unveil the hype you've been waiting for. It's time to bring an end to the question of who will win. It's us. I used to have that feeling, premonition of falling short. Now I have no fear since we're here to fight it together. I believe we can fly up in the sky. One day we may just.
And wrapping up number 4 on the Best of 2020 for Persona 5 Royal, it's that final boss battle. This is Throw Away Your Mask.
Shadow is where my mind's fading. As we go down to be sensitive to the new ways. But it doesn't have to be like this. Don't sleep through dreams that can't come true. No more tears shall drop from your cheeks anymore. You want me to strive for greatness. Believe in me that you don't need to suffer from anything.
You fought quite hard to make sure that not only was this on the list, but also placed pretty high. And you know what? I can respect the hustle.
It was number 2 on my top 10. Like, number 1, I think we're going to see it's a pretty decisive decision. But the new work on Persona 5 Royal is amazing. And that's, if you discount the rest of an incredible soundtrack from the original Persona 5. The tracks on the cutting room floor, even for this, were so good. And for me, like, I Believe is my song of the year. Like, it's incredible.
I don't know if I'm going to play Royal anytime soon. Right now, my plan is to save it for when we get to it in Masterpieces, but that's like 4 or 5 years away, and a lot could change between now and then. So I own it. I bought it because, I like Persona 5 a lot. I just, I haven't played it.
Well, I hope when you do get to it, hindsight will prove 2020, and you'll see that I was right to have it so high.
Coming in at number 3, I want to say this is probably the biggest surprise of them all.
I think so.
Because this game might have been sort of on my radar before it came out, but once I got a hold of the soundtrack and could really listen to it, man, it belongs on this list. It's No Straight Roads. The list of composers for this game is long, being Andy Tunstall, James Landino, Folk Ao Young, Click Track, Funk Fiction, Masahiro Aoki, and more. So let's jump right into it. The first of the tracks we want to highlight is Main Theme of NSR by Andy Tunstall. Following that, let's get into some boss fights, which is the big part of No Straight Roads. By Funk Fiction, you have Versus DJ Subatomic Supernova. After that, by James Landino with vocals by Nikki Simmons, you have Versus Sayu. After that, we get a little Shimamura-y in here with Falk Ao Young's versus Yinu. And lastly, let's get into that final boss music with Masahiro Aoki bringing us Versus Tatiana.
Now, I know what you're saying. If you've been listening to the show religiously, you're going to say, guys, didn't you have a partnership with No Straight Roads to give away copies of the soundtrack? Isn't this a conflict of interest?
No.
It's actually just that good. Like, put that out of your mind. It does not influence the decision at all whatsoever. Granted, you had this one a lot higher than I did, but I still had it in my top 10.
This was my number 3 for the whole year. So it basically, in fact, the next 3 are essentially exactly where I put them, because like all 3 of these were on both of our lists, and the last 2 especially were like high on both of our lists. So like, I did not expect this small game that I had not heard of until like late last year, and that was just in the context of, hey, are you interested in reviewing this? I did not expect this game to like come in clutch as one of my favorite soundtracks of the year. I keep listening to it, versus Sayu and Yinu especially. I listen to both of those songs all the time. So yeah, it's just great.
For me, it's Versus Tatiana. That Masahiro Aoki work is incredible.
Oh yeah, that is really good. Subatomic Supernova is also very good. And I mean, I could have included, if we had more tracks, the Versus 1010 is fantastic. It's just, Versus Eve is also really fun. It's just a great soundtrack, guys. You should go listen to it. It's fantastic.
So yeah, partnerships not affecting results. It's just the work speaks for itself, honestly. Number 2, it is Hades. Hades, composed by Darren Korb, with vocal tracks featuring Ashley Barrett. We gotta start with the beginning of your runs. This is Out of Tartarus. Then you get to meet Eurydice. This is Good Riddance, Eurydice solo.
Good riddance to all the thieves, to all the fools that stifled me. They've come and gone and passed me by. Good riddance to all. Farewell to all the earthly remains. No burdens, no.
After that, it's time to fight the Furies, or at least one of them. This is Scourge of the Furies. Can you make it out? It's final boss time. This is God of the Dead. And finally, that long, long road to the end credits. This is In the Blood.
Hades is my game of the year. I don't have my top 10 set up yet, but Hades is number one. I can say that clearly. I've rolled credits on Hades already, and I've gone back for like 5 more runs at least. Like, I've rolled credits and I'm still going back to play it. It's so good.
It's fantastic. I don't know if I would have it as high as number one. It's definitely in my top 10, probably cracks my top 5. I don't know if I'd have it number one for personal tastes, but Supergiant did amazing work. I'm so glad for them that, they're winning awards. They're getting all the recognition that they deserve. And Darren Korb, from voicing Zagreus to composing the music that is striking. I mean, that Good Riddance track, I mean, my goodness, strikes you when you first meet Eurydice and all the times after. And then to have in God of the Dead, I mean, we didn't have it in the clip, but to have God of the Dead open with the title screen music is such a baller move.
Oh, it's so good. I was fighting about whether or not the clip would be just that, because I almost just made it that, because that is such a good moment. But I think the moment I picked is also like one of those, all right, now it's happening for real.
I mean, Darren Korb goes real hard on those guitars for that fight. It's so good. I mean, yeah, I don't think Darren Korb and Ashley Barrett can do any wrong. So it's very, very good. So to recap, we have number 10, Doom Eternal. Number 9, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity. Number 8, The Pathless. Number 7, Streets of Rage 4. Number 6, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Number 5, Ghost of Tsushima. Number 4, Persona 5 Royal. Number 3, No Straight Roads. And number 2, Hades. Before we get to number 1, though, and a consensus number 1 at that,
which you all already know what it is, but pretend you don't for a little bit.
We're going to roll out some honorable mentions your way. So yeah, what do we say? We have 19 honorable mentions that you'll get to hear one track from, and then a whole list of 17 honorables that we're going to rattle off to you. So let's start with these honorable mentions in alphabetical order. We actually start with a numbered game. And granted, there are different reasons why these, just missed the cut. Could be lack of experience with the game. It could be just wasn't good enough to crack the top 10. Could be, they really made impacts with whether it's a song or the soundtrack this year, but So there are a variety of reasons, but we wanted to make mention of these honorable mentions. Let's start with 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, composed by Hitoshi Sakimoto. The track we're choosing here is Brat Overflow.
Weird name. 13 Sentinels is another one of those games I think I have to get to this year because I keep hearing endless praise of it.
Especially its narrative, but the soundtrack is a standout for sure.
Following that, I mean, look, this game was probably one of the most important games to be released all year. Let's be real. Had the most impact, but it just barely didn't make it on the final 10. It's Animal Crossing New Horizons, which was composed by Yasuaki Iwata, Yumi Takahashi, Shinobu Nagata, Sayoko Doi, and Masato Ohashi. And the song that, I mean, what other song could there be to represent it but Welcome Horizons? I almost made it the song you hear for the first 10 hours of video game. That will always be stuck in my head for the rest of my living days.
But you know, this song is the one it had to be. And yeah, wow, what a game in the COVID-19 pandemic for 2020. Came out at just the right time. And all the time spent with it. I'm scared to go back because I haven't been back in a long time. That's kind of how it goes with Animal Crossing games, I guess. The next honorable mention comes from the PlayStation 5. And if you were lucky enough to buy a PlayStation 5, especially during this holiday season...
Don't rub it in.
I'm sorry. But if you did, you probably got to play a fantastic game called Astro's Playroom. Astro's Playroom, the soundtrack composed by Kenneth Young. And the standout song from that game is I'm Your GPU. Plays in the GPU jungle, and man, if you played Astrobot Rescue Mission on PlayStation VR, you know the quality of this soundtrack and what this sounds like. I mean, it's a bop.
I think of all the things that I'm looking forward to about owning a PS5, because I've heard so many cool things about how the haptic feedback stuff in the controller, I'm told most people like hear about it and they say, I mean, how good could it be? But from what I've heard, the thing that changes most people's mind is getting a hold of Astro's Playroom, and it's like, oh, I get it now. And I want to experience that, damn it.
Right from the beginning moments of that game where they have you introduce yourself to the controller. It's so good. I'm really excited for you to experience it. It's a powerful moment that I got to experience this year for sure.
Following that, you have the unlikely revival of an old franchise. It's Battletoads, which was composed by David Housden. I say both because some of it is old songs, but most of it, I believe, is new tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So David Housden, we've talked about him in the past for his work on Thomas Was Alone. The song that has been chosen to represent Battletoads is Turbo Tunnel. Song obviously is one of the ones that has been arranged. The Turbo Tunnel is, the thing people think about when they think about Battletoads. The thing that stops most people in their tracks. It was originally written by David Wise, but this is Housden's take on it.
It's so cool. It's a big standout moment in the game because I got to play it this year. Thank you, Game Pass, once again. But wow, the shredding of the guitar and the groove it gets into, it's really cool. And it was one of my picks to be here on the honorable mentions.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give... I will probably give it a shot, considering, Game Pass. Again, man, how does Game Pass make money? I don't understand.
And it's another one-sitting game. At least it was for me.
Yeah, and probably even more if you play it co-op, which I got a roommate for that. I should get him on that.
Up next, it's the one and only Bugsnax. The music from Seth Parker, who we talked about on our episode for Octodad Dadliest Catch. Bugsnax. There's only one song, right? For all the soundtrack that this game has. From Quero Quero Bonito, it's Bugsnax.
You might think it sounds impossible till you've seen a caracol. Kind of bug and kind of snack. Try to catch him in your trap. Feed somebody and you'll see we are whatever we eat. Find him hiding in the sand, tearing up a ketchup patch. Come to snack to Thailand and discover it's Bugsnax. It's Bugsnax. Talking about Bugsnax.
I think this game has a pretty good soundtrack. That being said, there's no other option. This is the one.
It took over the internet. It had to be played on this show to talk about 2020 music for games. It just had to be.
Bugsnax, I think, is also one of those ones. I don't know if it'll break my top 5, but it's definitely going to be on my top 10 because I did very much enjoy it. It's weird. It's deeply weird. Deeply weird. Especially with some of the places it goes at the end. But I think that just makes it even better. And I enjoyed Bugsnax quite a bit.
I am looking forward to getting around to it. That may be a next year one, though.
So following that, we go to another unsettling game. I don't know if I'd call Bugsnax unsettling, but it's weird. But Carrion, though. Carrion is unsettling. The game where you get to play as a big meat monster to attack the scientists that were studying you. It's done by Chris Velasco, which, like I said last week, we should probably cover Chris Velasco at some point. And I'm glad we could at least get him in on this one. The song that we have chosen to represent Carrion is Electric Division. Song plays, I believe, when you're fighting mechs, because eventually they do pull out the mechs. Carrion is very good. It has one very large flaw, which everybody that I've heard talk about this game has pointed out the same large flaw, which is it's a Metroidvania with no map. I don't understand how that happened. Guys, you need a map if you're going to make a game like this, but whatever. It's still very good, and Chris Velasco does a very good job at making like this very dark sounding music that also makes you feel monstrous. It's a lot of fun. That's also on Game Pass. I definitely recommend people give it a shot.
Wow. So it's not like we're plugging Game Pass, I promise, but it's really telling to show that so many of these winners, these honorable mentions, so to speak, they're on Game Pass. It's a strong year for games and their music. That continues from a game that came out at the start of the year. This is Coffee Talk, composed by Andrew Jeremy. We've covered Coffee Talk on Original Soundchat before earlier this year, so you should be familiar if you listen to the show with our thoughts on it. But those good lo-fi vibes, that record static, it's fantastic. So the track we're highlighting is Come Closer.
Coffee Talk is one of those games that I think about a lot this year. It is another game that I think was perfect for 2020, even though, it came out before all of this, because it launched in January. Are you like me and miss going to restaurants? Or are you like me and you don't actually go to coffee shops and you just want to pretend you do? Coffee Talk's the game for you. It's very well written. It's just, it's nice. It's a nice game. And like you said, it's also on Game Pass. So absolutely check it out if you have any interest in, visual novels.
Especially if you liked Valhalla cyberpunk bartender action.
Yes, it's very similar, which is also on Game Pass.
Oh my gosh. Look at that Microsoft selection. They're doing some real good work. Yeah, I'm excited to eventually give this game a try. It's installed on my Xbox Series X. So I'm really itching to give it a shot. The next honorable mention is Demon's Souls. And honestly, this is one just from a lack of knowledge on this because, this soundtrack is real good. Real good. Composed primarily by Shunsuke Kida. And the track we're going to highlight is Storm King. I mean, it's a Souls game, and the work they did to put a facelift on this soundtrack, fantastic.
My roommate and I are contractually legally obligated to play Demon's Souls the instant one of us gets a PS5, because we like to joke that it is our cat's favorite game, because he's a real gamer, and it's the only game he plays. So every time we're talking about like video games, we'll look at him and be like, "What do you think, Herschel?" Yeah, it's not Demon's Souls. Shut up, Herschel. It's a running joke around this apartment. It's really stupid. There's no logic to it, but it means we have to play Demon's Souls when one of us gets a PS5. Following that, we have one of the phenomenons of the year. It's Fall Guys, which has a soundtrack done by Jukio Kallio, who we've talked about before, and Daniel Hagstrom, which I don't believe we have talked about him. And the song that we have chosen to represent this game, I mean, what else is it going to be? It's going to be the main theme. It's Everybody Falls.
good for Yukio Kallio to get back on this list. I mean, his work on Minute is amazing, and to see Mediatonic hit big with Fall Guys this year is just fantastic to see. Really well deserved.
Even if it overshadowed their other game that came out this year, super hard. But also, congrats to Devolver, because I'm pretty sure this is the most successful game Devolver has ever put out. Ever. So, hey, big ups to them.
The next honorable mention is another flaw of not being as familiar with the game itself. It is Genshin Impact with composer Yupeng Chen. So many amazing tracks to pick. Apparently performed by the London Philharmonic Orchestra, because that's what you can do when you make a game with mobile gacha money, I guess, of high quality. So this is Symphony of Boreal Wind.
This one is probably our biggest collective blind spot.
I mean, yeah. For 2018, it was Red Dead Redemption 2. For 2020, it's this. Unfortunate, but yeah, wow, what a soundtrack. I hate that it missed the cut, but that's why it's our list. I think people who played this game would argue it's well deserving would be on a top 10 list, if not very high on that list. But yeah, wow. Great work on Genshin Impact.
Yeah, I'll try it eventually. I mean, it's free. I don't plan on dumping any gacha money in there, though, because I ain't playing that game.
I was going to say, free is how they get you.
Following that, it's another game neither of us played, but really surprised me with how good the soundtrack is. It's Ghost Runner, which, if you haven't heard of Ghost Runner, it's basically somebody asked what would happen if we shoved Mirror's Edge into Katana Zero. Very cool game. I'm very bad at it and likely will never play it. The soundtrack is by Daniel Deluxe. The song that has been chosen to represent it is Sector. I would like to play it, but I played a demo of it on one of the Steam festivals earlier this year, and I was so bad at it that I needed somebody else to go get footage for me.
Interesting. Yeah, like also first person Hotline Miami, Katana Zero is a good comparison, but yeah, looks super cool. I'd probably be really bad at it. I have not given it a shot yet, but can't mess with that synthwave soundtrack. Woo. The next honorable mention goes to Haven, with its soundtrack composed by Danger. The track we are choosing has an interesting title. It's called 0442 Still Free.
Haven is a game that recently released, like a couple weeks ago. It's still released before Hyrule Warriors, I think, so that still wins there. But it's a co-op RPG. I played a demo of it again at one of the Steam festivals. It's really cool. What I've heard of the soundtrack is great. It's on Game Pass. I don't know if I'm going to play it with my roommate because it seems more created to be played with a significant other.
Yeah.
Because the two characters are, in fact, together. But I don't know. I will probably end up talking my roommate into playing this, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing it.
I just might have to play it with my significant other. Very interesting. But yeah, I mean, great sound, and that's a really cool vibe to this piece in particular, but the soundtrack as a whole just sounds so good.
Following that, it's, in my opinion, the most shocking member of the honorable mentions list, because I know you and I know where we are, but it's The Last of Us Part 2, with the soundtrack, of course, by none other than Gustavo Santaolalla. And there's one option for this. Like, the soundtrack is very good, because it is Santaolalla, but come on. The track to pick to represent it is Wayfaring Stranger.
I'm going there to see my father. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm just a going over Jordan. I'm just a going over home.
This song is so good, and it only plays in the end credits. I mean, it's a fantastic soundtrack. The Last of Us Part 2 is my game of the year. I had the soundtrack placed at number 6, so I think it was like literally the first one off the list, which is, yeah, sucks that it didn't make it, but here it is. Wayfaring Stranger, I think they played, by they I mean Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson. They played it at like a stage show for The Last of Us when they were like doing like, let's act out scenes from The Last of Us on a stage. It was a few years ago, and they play this song, and it came back into the game, so it makes a nice impact. But I mean, for future days from Pearl Jam to be such an important part in the game, and then Gustavo Santaolalla with his themes and the music that he plays, especially on banjo. I mean, it's a great soundtrack. Hurts that it was cut, but you know, sometimes the right things had to be done. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been Doom. Like, Doom Eternal had to make it, right? So
I learned recently about this song that it is old, like,
yes,
really old, so old that nobody knows who wrote it. Because I just sort of assumed it was, like I'm sure most people do, I just assumed it was a Johnny Cash song. Because he covered it famously. But no, it's like it's like Old West old.
The next honorable mention is another one that, just missed the cut, and we had it on there for a while, and then better examples came up, but Murder by Numbers is a delightful surprise this year, with the soundtrack composed by Masakazu Sugimori. We talked about Murder by Numbers on Original Soundchat, so you can find that episode if you want to hear more about it, but the track to highlight is The Digital Detective. Even tough to narrow down that one, but I feel like that's the right choice for solving Picross puzzles and also solving mysteries like Ace Attorney.
Yeah, this game's soundtrack is just a gift. I absolutely adore it. It does hurt that it's not on the 10, but again, like you said, better examples just popped up. This has been a hell of a year. But yeah, we did an episode on this. It's the same episode as Coffee Talk, actually. So if you want to hear our thoughts on both of those games, hey, you only got to go one place. After that, this is another one of our blind spots, because I don't think either of us played this game. It is Paper Mario: The Origami King. This soundtrack was composed by Yoshihito Sekigawa, Sho Murakami, Yoshiaki Kimura, Hiroki Morishita, and Fumihiro Isobe. And the song we have chosen to highlight here is Sniff City.
What a delight to get a new Paper Mario game, to have the soundtrack be the standout that it is. Yeah, I haven't gotten to it though. Heard great things, and there are so many even then to choose the one track here for this one. So that was a tricky one. But yeah, I wish we had more hands-on experience with it.
Yeah, I was told very early that like this should probably be a contender for top 10. Which it was. It is another one that just barely didn't make it. I believe there's only 2 more of those after this. But yeah, the soundtrack is fantastic, and it's just, I don't know if I'm gonna get to this game. The battle system does not seem like my jam, but who knows? Stranger things have happened.
4 more honorable mentions left to go. Let's talk about another one. This is Paradise Killer, and it's composed by Barry Topping, also known as Epoch. The track that we are choosing is Paradise, Stay Forever.
Our time's arrived, wondering about you, leaving there without you. Oh, red skies, where love dies. 25, you'll stay forever. Here in paradise, your red lies, those blue cries. Close the door, I'll stay forever. Here in paradise, if you're listening, it's too late. You're waiting for some time to waste. I never.
It's like Danganronpa, but it's a little more 90s neon, it seems like. I'm interested to try it for sure, and hearing a track like this definitely is worthy of being on honorable mentions.
Yeah, this is another one of those games for this year where I'm told like, oh no, like you can't miss this one. This one is like a game of the year contender for a lot of people. It's supposed to be crazy good. And yeah, the soundtrack is, everything I've heard of it so far is just fantastic.
But you know what? You need to play Danganronpa before you play this game.
I need to play a lot of things before I play a lot of things. Never forget the last game I finished so far this year was Portal, a game that came out in like 2008. Following that, we have another game that came out pretty close to the start of the year. I want to say it came out literally the week things started going bad. It is Resident Evil 3, the remake, with its soundtrack by Kota Suzuki, Azusa Kato, and Masami Ueda. And I mean, I don't know what else to use here, but Nemesis's theme. Nemesis is scary. He's scary and he's a bully and he's mean to me.
I gotta get to this one for sure. I mean, Nemesis does sound real frightening. I thought Mr. X was scary, and I guess he was manageable in Resident Evil 2, but
Now imagine Mr. X has a ranged attack, and also you have to fight him.
yeah, that just sounds real rough. But I heard good things about Resident Evil 3, not to the caliber of RE2, but it's one I definitely want to give a shot. 2 more honorable mentions. One of them here is Shantae and the Seven Sirens. Soundtrack composed by Kentaro Sakamoto, Mark Sparling, Madeline Lim, and Gavin Allen. The track we're choosing for this one is Sea Vent Labyrinth.
I will admit, I was worried when I found out that Seven Sirens was not getting a soundtrack by Jake Kaufman. But I think these composers killed it. This song is so cool. And also, Seven Sirens is just very good. If you're in the mood for a really good Metroidvania, like, this is the one. Go for it.
Do you think it's even worth jumping for your first Shantae game?
It's either that or Pirate's Curse. I still think Pirate's Curse is better, but Seven Sirens is very good.
That's good to know. I mean, I think I've got Pirate's Curse, so maybe I'll check that one out sometime. But yeah, I can't go wrong with Shantae. Definitely deserving of honorable mentions.
And our final honorable mention, this is the last one that almost made it in the top 10. In fact, when we were doing like some of our ranking, one of the things we used to rank, it was dead tied with Doom. But, I mean, let's be real. Doom wins that tiebreaker. But it is Spiritfarer, and it's soundtrack by Max LL. And the song that I think best represents Spiritfarer is Last Voyage. This is the song that plays when it's time to say goodbye to one of the people from your ship. And it hits you real hard in the chest with them emotions. And Spiritfarer is a game that I don't think I'm going to replay anytime soon, but that I'm never going to forget.
It does sound like one that is worth getting to. Is that another Game Pass one?
It sure is. That's how I played it.
Woo! Game Pass killing it this year. All right. When it comes to honorable mentions, let's rapid fire ones. We're not going to play any tracks for these ones, but let's give special shout outs to these games for also having really good soundtracks. It was a very difficult year for narrowing this down. Starting with Assassin's Creed Valhalla with a soundtrack by Jesper Kyd, Sarah Schachner, and Einar Selvik.
After that, we have Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, a surprising entry to the list, by Chami Ishii and Toshiki Aida.
Following that, it's Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, with the soundtrack by Walter Mayer.
Another one that is a surprising entry onto here is Deadly Premonition 2, A Blessing in Disguise, by Satoshi Okubo.
Good to see his name back in there. That's pretty awesome. Up next, Going Under, from Felix Peasley.
I actually had a lot of trouble finding out the name of the composer. I had to contact the developers themselves.
Oh, wow.
And they answered me, so thank you guys. Following that, we have Grand Blue Fantasy Versus with a soundtrack by Tsutomu Narita, Yasunori Nishiki, Hidenori Maizawa, Nao Tokisawa, and Azusa Chiwa.
Also an honorable mention is If Found, with composers listed as Too Mellow, Eli Rainsbury, Maurice Foley, Stano, Operating Theater, and Ensemble Ryu.
Next we have Inmost, with a soundtrack by Alexei Nechayev.
Also, The Last Campfire from Paul Weir.
Manifold Garden from Larissa Okada should also be given a shout out.
One that almost made the list, I think, also is Necro Barista from Kevin Penkin.
I imagine this might have been on the honorable mention list if either of us had managed to get to it. I have it installed, I never played it. Also, one you might not have heard of is Pumpkin Jack, with a soundtrack by Johann Jaeger.
A game that made some waves this year was Risk of Rain 2, and especially its soundtrack from Chris Christodoulou.
A game that I personally need to get to because it seems right up my alley. It's Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, with its soundtrack by Hiroyuki Oshima.
Amazing that this sequel came out this year, but Spelunky 2, and its soundtrack by Eric Surke.
Another of those surprises that it would end up here and not like in the top 10, but I mean, it's still really good. It's Spider-Man Miles Morales, with its soundtrack by John Paisano.
Loved the game, but wow, the soundtrack just did not pop as much as we were expecting, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. A little more low-key.
Trials of Mana is another one, with its soundtrack remade, originally by Hiroki Kikuta.
Also, a game that came out literally at the beginning of the year, like I want to say January 3rd or 5th or something. It's Vitamin Connection, with its soundtrack by Mint Potion.
We also have When the Past Was Around, with its soundtrack by Mastito Bakhtiar.
And lastly, for the honorable mentions, we have Yakuza Like a Dragon, with its soundtrack by Hidenori Shoji, Yuri Fukuda, Chihiro Aoki, and Saori Yoshida. So many soundtracks.
So many. Thank you for sticking through all those honorable mentions with us.
If we had kept every honorable mention contender as an honorable mention, the honorable mentions section on its own would have been over an hour long. But it's finally time to get to number 1. And you already know what it is, because I'm pretty sure we've said it in episodes exactly what it is. It is Final Fantasy VII Remake, with its soundtrack composed by Nobuo Uematsu, Masashi Hamauzu, Mitsuto Suzuki, Yasunori Nishiki, and a bunch more. So let's jump into what we both pretty much agreed had a consensus immediately on as being the best soundtrack of the year, with a bullet. Let's start with Bombing Mission by Shotaro Shima and Nobuo Uematsu. After that, we have Let the Battles Begin, A Merc's Job. After that, we have one of the original songs, actually, to be written for the game. It's Hollow Skies. one of the coolest drops in the game, one of the coolest musical moments, comes out of our fourth track, Genova Quickening. And of course, we would be remiss not to mention the absolutely fantastic song that I have been listening to on loop for a week, One Winged Angel, Rebirth.
At the beginning of the year, we thought it was going to be either Final Fantasy VII Remake or Doom Eternal for Soundtrack of the Year. And they bookend our top 10 list. How about that?
Yeah, that's nuts. I was pretty sure, especially after playing the game. So here's the thing. I had high hopes for this soundtrack, and it managed to smash them so thoroughly that it was going to take a miracle from God himself to not have this be my number one soundtrack of the year.
I mean, the amount of music they crammed in and just the amount of quality music, too.
Every boss gets their own version of Fight On.
Just amazing. And you mentioned that musical moment with Genova. I mean, oh my goodness. Between that and the Jin Sakai Ghost of Tsushima title splash, those are the two big musical moments of the year for sure.
Everybody I know, including myself, just completely lost it when that moment happens. And this One Winged Angel Rebirth might be the best version of One Winged Angel that's ever been arranged.
Right?
Like with a bullet. It's so good.
Almost disappointing that it didn't make it into Smash.
It's actually is disappointing that none of these made it into Smash, to be perfectly honest.
But even like the bombing mission, just to get into that kind of orchestration right away is incredible.
We did a bonus episode, me and Matt, for Smash Pieces on Remake, and Matt mentioned, so when we talked about the original Final Fantasy VII, I had mentioned that the bombing mission kind of makes me emotional, that song, and he didn't really get why. And then when this game came out and this version played in that scene, he was like, oh, I get it now.
Oh, yeah, I mean... Wow. It's a shame that it's only a third of the way through the story. There's probably at least 2 more games coming for this Final Fantasy VII Remake, but...
We'll see part 2 in 7 years.
But if the soundtracks can hold up to this quality, watch out.
I cannot wait to hear what they do with Cosmo Canyon. I cannot wait.
So that's our top 10 list. We're here at the end of 2020. Joe, let's look forward a little bit. What is your one big goal for Original Soundchat for 2021?
I've kind of already alluded to this in previous episodes, but I want to do more listener suggestions. We had some real good episodes this year involving listener suggestions, Tales of Symphonia on your end was a listener suggestion. On my end, Neverhood was a listener suggestion, and that turned out great. So I want to do more of those because I only know so many video game soundtracks. I know a lot, but there is a limit to that number. and there are a lot that I don't know anything about. And so I've already put the call out on Twitter a couple of times, but if you have a soundtrack you want us to talk about, let us know. I've already set up a spot on our episode tracker to be like, these are episodes that people have mentioned that they would like to hear us talk about. So, yeah.
It does make the research more fun, for sure, when it comes to that. So that's definitely a good one. I want to make more progress into going back into best of years. Granted, the end of the year has gotten very busy for us. I mean, we're still sitting on best of 2017 production. That list has been done and buried, and it's so far gone. But like, I want to make more progress on those if possible, and keep delivering great content every week. Really, really enjoying making this show for you guys, for sure.
Yeah, it's been a good year for this and almost nothing else.
That's one way to put it. In this year of 2020, that will never be forgotten in time.
Much as we might like to.
That will do it for us this week on Original Soundchat. You can find me on Twitter at Pete Speakeasy. Joe is over at the Dobaga. The video version of the show is on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel, but it's that MP3 podcast version that you want, hosted by Anonymous Dinosaur at anondino.squarespace.com. It's where Joe's other podcast, Masterpieces, is hosted. And you can find those podcasts on services all around the globe, wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. We have the podcast feed with episodes and bonus tracks, but also Spotify has the big old Spotify playlist. We've mentioned a lot of video game music tracks on this episode and on other shows and episodes in the past. When we mention a song from a game soundtrack and it's on Spotify, it goes on this big Spotify playlist. Joe, what is being added?
Yeah, it's about to get a lot bigger. So in terms of the top 10, the soundtracks that are on Spotify are The Pathless, Streets of Rage 4, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, Ghost of Tsushima, No Straight Roads, and Hades. And in terms of honorable mentions, we have Battletoads, Bugsnax, Carrion, Demon Souls, Fall Guys, Genshin Impact, Ghost Runner, Haven, Paradise Killer, Resident Evil 3, Shantae and the Seven Sirens, and Spiritfarer. You might be wondering, hey, isn't Last of Us Part 2 on Spotify? It is. But Wayfaring Stranger is not.
Important distinction there. And yeah, we'll keep on working on bonus tracks for you guys there. Like, yeah, best 2017. It's coming. It's coming eventually. We promise. All right, Joe, into 2021. Who are we talking about next week?
I will be talking about Mark Sparling.
And I'll be talking about Jim Dooley. All right, to play us out, we like to cover a song that kind of stood out to us, but may not be worthy the whole soundtrack for different reasons here and there. And we couldn't think of anything else but the new version of Dearly Beloved that is featured in Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. What a take on this classic song.
My new favorite version of the song in general.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening this week on Original Soundchat. We'll see you next time. Take care.